my take is the space is going up 100x. And let's say Ethereum is 90% of that space right now, and it ends up being 60% of that space. 60% of a $200 trillion market is a lot more than this. So, of course, it will not have its dominance over time. Like Bitcoin doesn't keep its dominance over time. It'll get splintered in different use cases. Other people will come in. There'll be great developments, and all of these spaces will be 100 times the size they are now. So I think people still think of this as a zero-sum game, and it comes from the early days of adoption, because that's what networks are, these kind of behavioral incentive adoption models that the cryptocurrencies are, which is why they're so powerful. At first, it's like if you don't get adoption, you can see it being fought out in like the Hex community or some of these kind of more kind of risky, not real projects. They're fighting to keep them alive. Right, so they fight against other people to get adoption. Ethereum doesn't need to do that any longer, and actually nor does Bitcoin. And one of the reasons that you were alluding to why so many people have started moving across to Ethereum as an investment was actually the Bitcoin community. They kind of screwed it up.
Go into that more.
Because they were too toxic. There are some really smart people in that space, and some people I really respect. Some people who say, listen, my view is I think over time, the monetary element is what I'm interested in. And I think Bitcoin best reflects that. And I think there's an opportunity for it to be a larger part of the global financial system. So I'm going to focus on that. I totally get it. Is there a probability that Bitcoin is money in the end? There is a probability. So I get that path, and that's their macro bet. But there's another group that was like, how dare you look at anything else? It's a shitcoin, it's a scam, it's we hate you, all of this stuff, right? Which is the same stuff we were just talking about with these others, is they spent too long on a fight that was the past. And they should have said, fine, you guys do that, we're doing this, we'll probably develop some smart contracts in due course, we got the lightning layer, this is all great, look at the space, it's all going up 100x, we're all going to get rich. And we can change the world while we're doing it, and probably solve a lot of inequality. But they did the opposite. And that I think was a huge tactical error, because people in the institutional space don't like to see that. And whether people like it or not, institutional adoption is part of the story. So
on Bankless, Raoul, we try and emphasize the role of what we call the layer zero, which, Bitcoin, Ethereum, these are layer one blockchains, but ultimately it's the communities that compose these layer ones that really kind of define the asset, right? Like they kind of define what the thing actually is. And Ryan and I have felt similar resistance from like the deep Bitcoin maximalists who, like, as soon as we talk about anything that's not Bitcoin, we feel their teeth, right? Do you have a perception as to what the Ethereum community is like, and how the Ethereum community defines the Ether, the asset, and the role of people's portfolios? Do you have an opinion on this, or is it just that you were tainted by the Bitcoin maximalists with regards to Bitcoin? I don't see it as much in Ethereum. Yeah, there's a few people who throw out a few comments on Twitter, some sort of ETH maximalist view, and they don't mind baiting a few people with laser eyes and stuff like that. So you can see that. But generally speaking, I found that people in the Ethereum ecosystem are too busy building businesses to fight with each other or to fight with anybody else. You don't even see kind of ETH versus Solana. So, oh, that's an interesting project over there. They seem to be growing quite fast. I better get on with what I'm doing here. It's a very, 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 very different mentality. And it's because my guess is the Ethereum ecosystem is not a finished thing. Well, Bitcoin is finished, really. And therefore, it also becomes a bit boring. And I know this is terrible to say, but I understand the boomer coin thing, because it's a bit like gold, right? Gold's perfect. Gold doesn't have to do anything else. It's perfect. It's gold. And Bitcoin's perfect. It's Bitcoin. I mean, it's absolutely phenomenal. Now, so it's a bit boring to talk about. So then there's sovereign adoption. That is interesting. There's the institutional adoption, I think is very interesting. The Lightning layer is a payments layer. That's interesting. There is some interesting stuff. It's just not as intuitively interesting as the amount of innovation that's coming out of this space.
Yeah, I agree with that, Raoul. And like Dave and I have joked before, like we love Bitcoin. We talk about it often, but we would not actually want to have a Bitcoin podcast because I'm afraid we'd run out of things to say. Whereas with Ethereum, DeFi, NFTs, we just can't keep up, quite honestly. It's impossible to keep up with the inflow of content here.
We have 6 shows a week and we still can't do it.
We still can't do it. But so I have a question for you, though, on this. Our thesis has been Bitcoin's great. It's really cool. Hold it in your portfolio, right? Ether is even cooler and it's going to appreciate faster. Hold that in your portfolio as well. What's your take on that? Do you think what's the landscape that Bitcoin will inhabit? Do you think Ether will grow faster? Do you think Ether will flip in Bitcoin at some point in time?
I think there's a serious probability that they will, because a platform versus an asset it tends, just by the nature of what the Ethereum ecosystem is, it tends to attract more capital and have a higher market cap. So yeah, it's definitely possible. And the adoption rates continue at the rate that it's going, it'll happen pretty quick. So people should own a bit of Bitcoin. There is an argument that you should never own Bitcoin, because if you play it through and look at Bitcoin dominance or Bitcoin versus everything else, Bitcoin outperforms in bear markets, and Ethereum, and then going out the risk curve, outperforms even more. So yeah, we're seeing the risk curve here now, which is some of the newer, faster adoptions, let's say Solana, stuff like that, growing faster than Ethereum, because they're at a lower point in the cycle, the less number of users, price goes up exponentially faster, NFTs, stuff like that, when you're going further out the risk curve. So then let's say, so that's the bull market, you shouldn't own Bitcoin because it's going to underperform. And in a bear market, you should own stable coins. So in which case, why should you ever own Bitcoin?
This is what David tells me all the time.
And I've been thinking through this. And again, I am not saying this because I'm anti-Bitcoin in any way, shape or form. Sure. I'm thinking through asset allocation and how you think about it properly.
When you shop for plane tickets, you probably...
Ridiculously. Soon after that, my Ether allocation started going up. I sold my gold almost immediately around then, maybe just before then. So I was 100% crypto, and I have been for a long time now. I'm now, depending where we are today, 55% ETH, 25% Bitcoin, and then a tail of an equally weighted basket of a mix of DeFi protocols, layer ones, interoperability stuff, and then some specific bets in kind of social tokens, metaverse, and other longer term macro bets that I want to express that view in. And I'm just following the chart very closely of the Bitcoin ETH cross, and I think it's about to explode higher again. So I may end up selling all of my Bitcoin, which is a weird thing. And again, I'm not anti-Bitcoin, but I'll sell that to buy ETH.
You may end up selling all your Bitcoin.
Yeah, I've been fighting on myself for 2 months. Why not to?
A 100% crypto portfolio with the potential of having 0% of Bitcoin. That sounds like you're in Ethereum.
Am I a total degen now? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah. You fit right into us.
I think you fit right in here. That's for sure. Sounds similar to some portfolio's I know, right, David?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it feels like mine.
Well, so what's you said some things like you're debating with yourself on whether to do that or not. Why wouldn't you do that?
I don't know. And part of it, it's the part of the backlash from doing it. And also I spend a lot of my time speaking for no reason than to help the community, I speak to a lot of institutions, sovereign wealth funds, and everything about adoption, and Bitcoin is the thing. I get my sister-in-law into it, and, I get as many people as I can. So it feels disingenuous if I don't own it. I passionately believe in it. So it's a weird thing that as an asset allocation, it's suboptimal. But for the greater good, it's probably the right thing to do. So somewhere between not selling all of it and keeping some of it, so I can still say, obviously, I've still got Bitcoin, but it'll only be 5%. So something like that, I think. I'm not thinking of it as an Ethereum thing. I'm thinking of tokenization allows for the tokenization of culture, which is the release of value from culture. And I spend a lot of time in this space on a lot of things. I've got a project that I'm setting up within this space, and it's not to do with NFTs per se. I think NFTs are the first manifestation of culture. I think the DAO movement is culturally interesting. I think the social tokens is going to be culturally enormous. I noticed that there is currently coalescing around culture as, do you own a punk or do you own an ape or whatever it is. Some of that will last, some of it won't last. I mean, a ton of the tail of that stuff is just vaporware, but that's fine. Everyone kind of knows they're having fun and doing it. But culture as an investment is the big thing that's coming. I can't express how big that is. But don't forget, for everybody, music is the soundtrack to your life, or sports, or all of these things. If you even think back, what was I doing in 2011? You kind of think back to what music it was on, or what big events, what sport. They're all cultural. Culture is one of the things that drives humans, or gives them. It's one of the great reward systems humans have, is culture. And we've never been able to profit from it. In fact, just the brands did themselves that sold into culture. But this way, we get to participate in culture in a more meaningful way. I think it's a revolution.